Hi. My name's Phoebe. I was supposed to get married last Sunday. But instead of walking down the aisle, I watched my sister wear my dress, say my vows, and kiss the man I loved, while my mother clapped. They said I wasn't stable enough to be a wife. But if that's true, why was the priest staring at her and not me? Let me know if you'd like variations or pacing adjustments for voiceover. I woke before dawn, the silence of the guest house pressing in on me like a secret too heavy to carry. I'd imagined this day for years, meticulous planning, whispered toasts, worn in wedding shoes. My name on the invitation. My bouquet. My moment. I dressed slowly, smoothing the fabric of my dress, not because I doubted it, but because I believed it. This day was mine. I wrote the checklist, visualized the smile on my fiancé's face, the clink of glasses, the laughter of family celebrating. For me, today was a new chapter, a promise fulfilled. Coffee in hand, I slipped into the car and rolled down the highway toward the Austin estate where everything would happen. The late morning Queensland sun filtered through the trees, a gentle blessing, or so I thought. My mind drifted to younger years, the nights I baked desserts for family gatherings, the times I postponed promotions at work so I could help mom organize cousin reunions. I believe those quiet sacrifices led here. My thoughts stopped when the phone rang. Nadine. Her voice light, ready for the big reveal? I laughed politely, assumed she meant the surprise cake. I said yes, imagining nothing untoward. Arriving at the venue, I felt a rumble of disquiet. The valet nodded but didn't ask my name. Inside, staff exchanged glances I didn't understand. A bridesmaid rushed past, whispering apologies as she brushed by. I hovered at the check-in desk, expecting the greeter to say congratulations, Ms. Instead, enjoy the ceremony. Not the bride. The program in my hand had a different name, mine crossed out, Nadine's typed boldly. Confusion flickered. I tried to steady myself. I stepped deeper into the foyer. The floral arrangements were undeniably mine, white peonies, pale hydrangeas, yet something felt off. My name belonged here, I just hadn't been acknowledged. I inhaled control, reminding myself, I earned this. I trusted this moment. Walking toward the ceremony arch, I froze. Nadine stood there in my dress. The gasps of guests rose like shattered glass. She wore my smile as though it was borrowed and belonged to her. My mouth went dry. My hands trembled. I scanned the crowd. My fiancé, Gideon, sidled away, his eyes flickered down instead of meeting mine. My heart hammered. The whisper spread, is that the bride? My parents rose from their seats, faces set like statues. My mother's voice, calm but clear, you're causing a scene. Please leave. I sat stunned until someone offered me water, as if I were fainting. My shoe snapped under pressure, the heel splintered. I limped from the hall, an aunt sneering, this day isn't about you anymore, Phoebe. Security doors swished open. A little boy near the exit asked softly, are you the bride? My voice failed me. I stepped outside, dusk settling like a benediction turned to accusation. In the lot, I listened. Through the windows, Reverend Hal Brooks' voice echoed, she's not the bride, you are. Silence and shock rippled across the gathering. My chest tightened, and for the first time that day, someone stood up for me. The sound came from within, steady, sure, and louder than any scream I'd wanted to let out. She's not the bride, you are. It echoed across the wooden beams of the chapel like a hammer cracking bone. Reverend Hal Brooks stood there, hand raised mid-blessing, his eyes no longer on the couple in front of him, but fixed on me. For a second, no one moved. Then came the collective gasp. A ripple. Heads turned like dominoes. I hadn't stepped far from the doors, I wasn't meant to be seen again. But there I was, makeup smudged, dress wrinkled, dignity hanging on by thread. Nadine's voice cracked the silence. Oh, Reverend, don't be ridiculous. It's just a family thing. Inside joke. She forced a laugh that sounded too high, too rehearsed. Halbrook didn't blink. This ceremony can't continue without the rightful bride. I hadn't realized my feet were moving until I felt the aisle carpet under my soles. Every step forward was slow, but I made it. I didn't adjust my posture. I didn't smooth my dress. I didn't pretend to be okay. I let them see it, what they'd done to me. I stopped halfway, The hush so thick you could cut it with a butter knife. Nadine snapped louder this time. Phoebe, don't do this. You're unstable, you're making a scene, again. Reverend Halbrook pulled something from his vest pocket, a manila envelope. His voice didn't tremble. This is a notarized copy of the marriage request Phoebe and Gideon filed with my office 3 months ago. Their names. Their signatures. A few guests lowered their heads. Some shifted in their chairs. The woman in the front row, I think she was Gideon's cousin, actually whispered, I clapped for the wrong girl. I looked at Gideon. He was staring at the ground, jaw clenched. When I took another step, he finally looked up. I thought you changed your mind, he muttered. They told me you backed out. My stomach dropped. Who told you that? He didn't answer. Nadine grabbed his hand like it belonged to her. He yanked it back, not dramatically, just enough to say, not now. I stepped closer. I never said I wasn't coming. I never changed my mind. You never texted. Never called. Silence again. I have every message between us. Every unanswered voicemail. You ghosted me the week before our wedding. Guests began rising. Someone whispered, she was always the one he loved. Another person stood to leave, shaking their head. Nadine's voice cracked. You're going to believe her over me? Someone near the back laughed dryly. You're wearing her dress, Nadine. Nadine turned, heels clacking, fury seething beneath her blush. This isn't over. You think you're so clever, Phoebe? You've always played the victim. She stormed out, slamming the chapel doors so hard the stained glass rattled. Uncle Royce muttered, let's take this offline, as if damage control would work now. But it was too late. The truth had bled through. Reverend Halbrook set down his binder. This day must belong to the truth, or to no one. He walked off the altar, not waiting for permission. I didn't cry. I didn't crumble. I walked back down that aisle again, this time by choice. No one followed. Outside, the sky had shifted. What had started as a soft afternoon had darkened into that dusky gray that comes right before a storm. I caught my reflection in the car window. Same face, but something had changed. I looked still and sharper. If they could steal my wedding, what else were they planning to take? I woke in the quiet of Aunt Rhonda's lake house, where the air felt colder than grief yet strangely safe. The sun had barely climbed above the fir trees, but on the windowsill I saw light, thin, steady. Aunt Rhonda didn't ask questions. She only placed a mug beside me, white porcelain, blue trim, the words printed, peace doesn't mean silence, it means clarity. I stared at the phrase as though it were a mirror. When you're pushed out of your own life, you begin to wonder if it ever belonged to you in the first place. My phone lay on the nightstand, dozens of missed calls glowing in a list I didn't recognize. Unknown numbers. Old friends calling. My hands trembled. I tried to shut it off, but I couldn't. I pressed play on a voicemail from last night. Gideon. Slurred. Apologizing. I didn't think you'd actually show up, he said. My throat tightened. He admitted someone, Nadine, told him I'd moved on. That everyone believed it. He ended with, I didn't have the guts to ask you myself. At that moment, the betrayal wasn't just loud, it was deafening. Aunt Rhonda didn't speak until I caught her eye. Her voice was calm. You ready to stop giving them the benefit of the doubt? I shook my head, though my lips couldn't move. Later she handed me a printout. A group chat with my mother, Nadine, the wedding planner. 2 months before the date. They were discussing taking charge, if Phoebe doesn't step up. My invitation? Never even mentioned until the very end. They had this planned, Rhonda said. They used your silence as a signature. The sunlight faded and I moved to the dock, the water flat as a silver plate, my reflection fractured by ripples. I remembered countless family dinners, me sitting, smiling, nodding, speaking when spoken to. Letting others take up space I believed was mine. I turned to Rhonda and said, I wanted to believe they loved me the way I loved them. She answered with quiet truth, they loved you, but only when you were easy to ignore. Grief turned into clarity in that moment. This was not just about a stolen wedding, it was about years of being visible yet unheard. I closed my journal, zipped my bag, and stood up. The wind brushed against the lake's surface and I shivered, not from the cold, but from purpose. You told them I disappeared, I murmured, holding my phone steady. Let me reintroduce myself. I didn't drop the phone into the water, I didn't erase myself. Instead I hit record and composed a message, not for Gideon, not for Nadine, but for every guest who sat through the show. They thought they could remove me from the story. Instead, I made them remember I was the author. I drove home with the windows cracked, the air thick with that Texas dusk smell, grass and asphalt after heat. My childhood house looked smaller than I remembered, the porch light flickering like it was tired of pretending to welcome me. Inside, I pushed open the door to my old room. It wasn't mine anymore, the posters were gone, replaced by storage boxes stacked like tombstones of my teenage years. Dust hung in the late light like something watching. I sat on the old bed, the springs groaning the same way they used to when I hid here after every family argument. I ran my fingers across the worn quilt and whispered, I used to hide here. Tonight, I'll draft my next move. I pulled out the sealed envelope Aunt Rhonda had given me, the one marked keep until ready. Inside were copies of the wedding documents, printed emails, and one short note from her, they underestimate quiet people. Use that. On my desk, I spread out the papers like a map of betrayal. I remembered a line from a resilience seminar I once attended at work, you can't steal a person's future if they already left it behind. My reflection in the dark window stared back, steady. They don't get to decide what I become tonight, I said. The first warning came at 6:42 p.m. I was sorting through the files when my laptop chimed. A new message blinked in my inbox, sent from the wedding planner's address, but the tone was all wrong. The subject line read, friendly advice. I opened it. Stop digging, or you'll regret what you uncover. No signature. Just a sender tag, observer. For a long moment, I didn't move. The message wasn't just a threat, it was a confession that someone was watching. I leaned back, exhaled slow. My mother's voice echoed in memory, calm but cruel, we did what was best for the family name. My pulse steadied. This wasn't about a wedding anymore. It was a cover-up. I picked up the phone and called Aunt Rhonda. She arrived half an hour later, 2 cups of coffee in hand, her coat still unbuttoned. She didn't waste time on comfort. She set her drink down and said, you know they never expected you to fight back. We sat at my desk, side by side, the hum of the ceiling fan breaking the silence. She talked about her own years of being dismissed, the quiet one, she said, the one they never thought would speak. We drew up a list of names. The cousin who leaked the group chat. The planner who might have known too much. Gideon, the coward who might know where the money trail started. I wrote down the quote she'd always repeated to me when I was younger, when someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. I told her I'd email Gideon tomorrow. Not begging for an apology, but demanding clarity. I'm not asking him for truth, I said. I'm forcing him to say it out loud. Night deepened. I walked through the living room, where framed photos lined the mantel, Nadine posing in that white gown, my mother smiling beside her. The picture had been taken the day before the ceremony. My name wasn't mentioned once in the caption. I pulled out my phone and took a photo of the photo. This isn't a tribute, I muttered. It's an advertisement. Back in my room, I packed everything into a manila folder labeled, if anything happens to me, open this. The act steadied me. For the first time, I understood what fear really was, not panic, but preparation. I turned out the light, letting the room fade into shadow. Let them think I'll stay silent, I whispered. Tonight they'll learn otherwise. Just as I lay down, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number, you've received top secret clearance. We'll meet Tuesday. Come alone. The message glowed against the dark like an invitation from the edge of something dangerous. My hand trembled, not from fear, but anticipation. I typed back, I'll be there. Tuesday's meeting isn't about a wedding, it's about a legacy they tried to erase. The afternoon sun was west-leaning when I walked into my home study. My childhood desk, old and scratched, stood deserted. Documents were everywhere, the sealed envelope Aunt Rhonda gave me, scene recordings, printed emails, all stacked like evidence in a cold courtroom. My coffee sat untouched, lukewarm, as if it were waiting for me to decide if I'd sip or pour it out. I remembered something someone once told me, in the middle of difficulty lies opportunity. I used to shrug at quotes like that. Today, I clung to it. This wasn't about revenge, it was about reclaiming what they stole from me. I called Aunt Rhonda, and she showed up within the hour, ready. We mapped names, dates, voice recordings, backup files. My mindset shifted quietly but completely. No more hiding. No more standing on the sidelines. I was becoming the strategist. I had sent on an email to Gideon. Attached, sealed enveloped photo, scene recordings. My note: you have 24 hours to respond before I send this to the wedding guests and press. I sat back and watched the read indicator pop up. Him. Silent for a moment. Then his reply: we need to talk. Sunday? Noon. I knew the leverage had changed. I texted Nadine, game on. No reply. I moved to the window and stared at the Dallas skyline, lights blinking ahead of the dusk. I pictured the dominoes beginning to fall. Within hours the blowback came. A lawyer represented Nadine. A cease and desist landed in my inbox and Aunt Rhonda's. Demanded silence or face defamation. I felt the adrenaline rush, oddly welcome. My mother called, gentle voice, let's just calm things down, Phoebe. I answered softly, calming things down felt a lot like letting them win. For years I was on defense. Tonight, the house was defending its actions. I was watching them react. Aunt Rhonda stood beside me. They threatened me 2 years ago, she said. You're not alone now. I drafted a statement, you were told I didn't matter. I was wrong, they told you instead. I considered going public, even though exposing family secrets meant opening old wounds. I asked myself, what am I more afraid of, losing this fight, or losing myself? I chose myself. I closed the laptop, walked outside into the night air. The lights shimmered across the neighborhood, sounds distant. My breath was even. I paused, looked at my reflection in the car window, face changed, composed, not defeated. The phone vibrated, unexpected. A private video link. Timestamp, Sunday 10:15 a.m., chapel door. The sender, unknown. Message: you'll want to see this before you go public. I opened it, mind racing. They thought I was silent. They were about to learn I was recording. I stepped into the hotel ballroom with Aunt Rhonda beside me, clutching the manila folder of documents like armor. Reporters and family friends filled the room, cameras clicking, smartphones raised. A banner over the stage read Reese Family Legacy in bold letters, an image built on tradition, trust, and, now, betrayal. Nadine stood at the podium, flawless and poised, greeting the crowd with a rehearsed smile. As I watched from the sidelines, I leaned in and whispered to Rhonda, tonight they control the optics, tomorrow they'll control the narrative. My stomach shifted, sharp, and for the first time in days I felt a rush of energy, not fear, but clarity. The lights dimmed. The microphones hummed. The moment had come. Nadine began to speak, praising the family's history, the estate, the grand celebration. Her voice sweet, confident. Until she said this, I thank everyone for supporting our new house owner, Phoebe's replacement. The crowd's reaction came in waves, gasps, whispers, smartphone lights flickering like fireflies. My heart hammered. I walked to the front and said, you've heard the statement. Here is the truth. I clicked the remote and the screen flickered to life behind Nadine. A video appeared, our family planner discussing who will assume responsibilities and making the first daughter proud. My mother's face drained of color. Nadine's composure cracked. Cameras zoomed in. Reporters raised hands. Was this wedding ever real? I stood still, voice calm, eyes fixed on the audience. Truth doesn't conquer by force, it survives the test, I murmured. The narrative began to shift. Then Aunt Rhonda played the full recording. My stomach dropped as Nadine's voice echoed, if Phoebe doesn't step up, we'll take charge. My mother's laugh merging with her sister's plan. The room fell into the kind of silence you can hear your own heartbeat in. Family friends glanced away, some rose to leave. I broke it, they told you I disappeared. Let me reintroduce myself. The clip spread across phones, live feeds spun into trending topics. My betrayal had become their headline. My identity was not a footnote anymore, it was the story. When the last camera clicked off, I walked out of that room different. Nadine didn't meet my eyes, she slid past to the elevator. My mother lingered in the doorway, shoulders rigid. Rhonda placed a hand on my back, steady. I inhaled the scent of polished wood and stale coffee, allowed peace to settle in the wake of confrontation. I looked at the projection behind me, a photo of my childhood next to that of the wedding scene, side by side. I let it hang there. I zipped my folder, closed my laptop, and stepped into the night. The Dallas skyline glowed ahead. They tried to manufacture my silence, I said quietly. Instead, they manufactured my platform. My phone buzzed. It was a message from Gideon: "We need to talk. Tonight." You were right. I focused on the screen, my heartbeat even, my mind clear. When your silence becomes louder than their ceremony, the world listens. It was barely 7 a.m. when I saw Gideon waiting at the edge of the park. Same bench where we once split a sandwich and laughed about renting chickens for backyard eggs. He held 2 coffees, black, no sugar, and a single rose wrapped in paper. His eyes looked older than they did 2 weeks ago. Maybe mine did too. He stood when he saw me, no hesitation, no performance. "I saw everything," he said quietly. I should have spoken up. I froze. I didn't blink. I just listened. Then he added what I wasn't ready for: "Nadine threatened to leak something about my dad's business, his debt, old accusations. If I backed out, she said it would bury my name." I exhaled slowly. I didn't come here for an apology. I came for the truth. We started walking. Neither of us tried to fill the silence too quickly. I noticed how different it felt, him beside me now, not ahead or behind. We reached the park bench and sat. He pulled something from his jacket pocket. 2 wedding bands. Untouched. "I never signed the license," he said. "Not with her. I couldn't." I looked at the rings. I didn't reach for them. "Do you love me because you regret? Or because you remember who I am?" He didn't flinch. "My dad used to say, love isn't the moment you choose someone, it's the moments you choose them again." I didn't forget you, Phoebe. I lost myself for a while. But I never forgot. I didn't give him a yes. I said, "Walk with me. If we get to forever, let's do it with open eyes." He nodded, quietly. No promises. Just presence. That's all I needed. Later that day, I returned to Aunt Rhonda's house to gather my things. This time, I wasn't escaping, I was transitioning. Rhonda handed me a thick envelope. "You got this," she said with a wink. It was a publishing deal. They wanted the story, my story. The clips had gone viral, and someone believed it was worth telling. I stared at the contract, then at my old leather-bound journal. "I don't owe them my pain," I said. "No," Rhonda replied, "but maybe your strength helps someone find theirs." I nodded. I'd write. Not just to expose, but to rebuild. This chapter of my life had closed. The next one, I would draft on my own terms. That evening, I sat alone in my new place, a small loft tucked above a coffee shop in the quieter side of the city. Still smelled like sawdust and paint. I didn't mind. From my window, the streetlights blinked between tree branches. My laptop sat closed. The ring box lay in the drawer, unopened, not a farewell, just a pause. I whispered to myself, I walked into a wedding expecting to lose everything. And I did. But I found the one thing worth saving, me. No music. No voices. Just stillness. And it finally felt like home. Then, a knock on the door. I hesitated. A courier stood outside, plain uniform, no small talk. Handed me an envelope. Handwritten. Addressed to me. From my mother. The ink still fresh, the seal unbroken. Some ghosts don't stay buried, and some letters were never meant to be read.